Welcome to Cyber Bytes, your weekly deep dive into the latest in the cybersecurity world. I'm your host, Edwin Kwan, and in today's episode, we're covering 5 major stories, each with big implications for your digital life, your workspace, and even global security. So let's get started. Let's kick things off with a headline that's been causing panic: the so-called mother of all breaches. Reports exploded recently about a database containing a staggering 16 billion credentials that were leaked online. These are usernames and passwords. But before you start changing every password you've ever had, you should know that this is not a new breach. Instead, it's a massive compilation of credentials stolen over years from previous data breaches, info stealer malware attacks, and credential stuffing operations. The database was discovered by Cyber News, briefly exposed online, and is stored in a format typically used by info stealer malware. In other words, it's a huge collection of old breaches, not a fresh hack of a major site or service. The real story here is the ongoing threat of info stealer malware. These malicious programs infect Windows and Mac computers, quietly harvesting passwords, cryptocurrency wallets, and other sensitive data. Cybercriminals then bundle these logs and sell them on dark web markets, or even distribute them for free on Telegram and Discord. The sheer volume of stolen credentials make credential stuffing one of the most effective ways to break into accounts. So, no need to panic just yet. Just make sure you use unique passwords for every account, enable two-factor authentication, and check if your credentials have been exposed using services like Have I Been Pawned? Up next, a sophisticated attack campaign has managed to bypass Gmail's multi-factor authentication. Russian state-sponsored hackers, tracked as UNC 6293 and linked to the notorious APT29 group, have been targeting prominent academics and critics of Russia since April. Their weapon of choice: social engineering, but with a twist. The attackers impersonate U.S. Department of State officials and engage in lengthy, convincing email exchanges. Eventually, they ask their targets to create and share Gmail app-specific passwords, claiming it's necessary for secure government communication. These app-specific passwords are meant to let users access Gmail from less secure apps. But once shared, they give attackers full access to the victim's account, even if multi-factor authentication is enabled. In one case, the attackers send detailed PDF instructions and use fake but convincing state.gov email addresses. They even exploited quirks in the State Department's email system to make their messages look more legitimate. Once they had the app-specific password, they use residential proxies and virtual private servers to access the accounts without raising any red flags. Now, Google has spotted 2 main campaigns, one themed around the US State Department and another using Ukraine Microsoft Leos. Their advice is that high-profile users should enroll in Google's Advanced Protection Program, which blocks the creation of app-specific passwords and requires extra authentication steps, including passkey. Now, shifting gears to the global stage, China's People's Liberation Army, the PLA, is making headlines for its adoption of generative artificial intelligence in military intelligence. According to a new report from Recorded Future, the PLA is actively developing and deploying AI-powered systems to process intelligence data, generate reports, provide recommendations, and even support early warning and decision-making in military operations. What's fascinating is the PLA's nuanced approach. They're not just using off-the-shelf models. They are adapting both foreign and domestic large language models, including Meta's Llama, OpenAI's offering, and even the Chinese-developed models from DeepSeek, Tsinghua University, and Alibaba Cloud. Patent filings review ambitions to use generative AI for open source intelligence, satellite imagery analysis, and event data processing. One patent even proposes training specialized military language models using multiple intelligence disciplines. Now, the PLA researchers are optimistic about AI's transformative potential, but they also acknowledge the risks. One of them is hallucinations. There's also reliability concerns and the ever-present threat of adversarial deepfakes and disinformation. They warn that just as China can use AI to deceive others, foreign adversaries could use similar tactics to mislead Chinese analysts. The PLA is also grappling with ideological biases in AI training data and the need for robust human oversight to avoid disastrous mistakes in critical operations. So it looks like the AI arms race is real, and both China and Western nations are investing heavily in AI-driven intelligence. Or maybe I'm just hallucinating. For our next story, we're going to talk about exchange servers. New research from Positive Technologies have uncovered a campaign where unidentified threat actors are injecting malicious JavaScript keyloggers into Outlook login pages on publicly exposed Exchange servers. The goal is to steal user credentials as they are typed in. So far, at least 65 victims across 26 countries have been identified, with attacks spreading beyond the initial focus on Africa and the Middle East to also hit organizations in Vietnam, Russia, Taiwan, China, Pakistan, Lebanon, Australia, Zambia, the Netherlands, and Turkey. The targets include government agencies, IT companies, industrial firms, and logistic providers. The attackers exploit known Exchange vulnerabilities, some even dating back to 2021, like Proxy Shell and Proxy Logon. And they are using even older flaws, dating back to 2014. The malicious JavaScript captures login data and either stores it in files accessible from outside or it exfiltrated by Telegram bots and DNS tunneling. The variant that stores data locally is especially dangerous because it creates no suspicious outbound traffic, making detection much harder for security teams. If you're responsible for Exchange servers, patch immediately, monitor for unusual login activity, and audit your authentication pages for unauthorized code. Finally, we're on to our last story, and let's talk about policy. The US House of Representatives have officially banned WhatsApp from all government-issued devices, labeling it as a high-risk communication platform. The ban covers phones, laptops, desktops, and web browsers used by congressional staff. Now, personal use is still allowed, but not in sensitive areas like classified briefings or secure facilities. This move is part of a broader effort by the House to limit risky apps, with TikTok and the public version of ChatGPT having already been restricted. The Chief Administrative Officer recommended some alternatives, and that includes Microsoft Teams, Signal, iMessage, and FaceTime for official communications. Now, WhatsApp, for its part, pushed back. They argue that its end-to-end encryption makes it more secure than many approved alternatives. The company also pointed out that Senate staff still use WhatsApp and urged the House to reconsider. The timing, though, is notable, as WhatsApp recently announced plans to introduce ads and promote content in the Updates tab, using user data like location and behavior for targeting, and this is raising fresh privacy concerns. For government agencies and enterprises, the debate over messaging app security is far from settled. End-to-end encryption is important, but so are data sovereignty, metadata privacy, and controls over how and where data is stored. And that's all for this week's Cyber Bites. I'm your host, Edwin Kwan, signing off from Cyber Bites. See you next week, and until then, stay safe, stay skeptical, and keep your software and your wits up to date.